It's wild. But the defending World Cup champion almost never repeats.
Right, yeah. It's a real curse.
Like if you look at the modern history of the tournament, the team that lifts the trophy is usually just doomed to a humiliating early exit 4 years later.
Oh, absolutely.
And you handed us this massive, highly detailed analytical breakdown of the 2026 World Cup, the one spanning the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. And the underlying data is pointing to a pretty brutal reality check for the current kings of the sport.
It really is a harsh historical reality. I mean, when you have a spectacle of this unprecedented continent-wide scale, it is incredibly easy to get distracted by the flash.
Oh, for sure. The hype is going to be unreal.
Exactly. There will be, relentless commercials, celebrity appearances, just a deafening level of noise. So our objective today is to cut straight through that noise and isolate the actual signal.
Yeah, we are going to identify the true contenders, the teams mathematically destined for heartbreak, the cold mechanics driving the betting lines, and the contrasting iconic stadiums that will serve as the backdrop. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
If you were listening to this deep dive, consider this your ultimate shortcut. By the time we're done here, you are going to understand the hidden currents driving this tournament long before the first whistle even blows.
Yeah, and to truly grasp the landscape of 2026, we have to start at the absolute top of the mountain. Because surviving a tournament of this magnitude, it requires a very specific type of endurance.
Right, because of travel, right.
Exactly. We are talking about teams traversing multiple time zones. They're dealing with the altitude of Mexico City one week and then, the crushing humidity of Miami the very next week.
It sounds exhausting just talking about it.
It is. So when you evaluate who actually possesses the physical and tactical infrastructure to survive all of that and actually lift the trophy on July 19th, a really clear favorite emerges.
Yeah, and the overwhelming lock is Brazil. Which, I mean, on the surface, that might sound like the most basic default answer imaginable. Like, oh, it's Brazil, big shocker.
Right, yeah. The easy pick.
But looking at the tactical breakdown you brought us, this isn't just a prediction leaning on their historical mystique or the famous yellow shirt. They are entering 2026 with arguably their most complete, mechanically sound squad since they last won it in 2002.
Yeah, they really do have elite depth at every single position on the pitch right now. And that depth isn't just a luxury, it is their primary mechanism for survival.
Because international football is just a battle of attrition.
Totally. You aren't merely playing the 11 guys across the pitch. You are fighting the travel schedule, the compounding fatigue, the inevitable injuries. Most national teams look disjointed because, players spend 90% of their year in totally different club systems.
Right. They barely play together.
Exactly. But Brazil has cultivated a mature midfield and this deeply settled tactical cohesion. You factor in Vinicius Jr. hitting the absolute peak of his athletic and tactical powers, plus Rodrigo offering world-class support.
It's an incredible ecosystem.
It really is. They don't have to rely on a single savior to manufacture goals anymore.
It's a self-sustaining machine. But there is a massive psychological component driving them, too.
Yeah.
Because since that 2002 victory, Brazil's story on the global stage has been defined by unexpected exits and just, immense suffering under the weight of expectations.
Oh, absolutely. The pressure on them is always enormous.
Yeah, and it's like they've been operating as a tightly coiled spring for 2 decades. But instead of that pressure breaking them, it has actually compressed their tactics. They aren't trying to play wildly expansive, chaotic football anymore.
No, they've really tightened up.
Exactly. That suffering has forced them into playing tight, explosive, controlled bursts. It's a highly motivated kinetic energy that raw talent alone simply cannot replicate.
What's fascinating here is that compressed tactical approach is a necessary evolution. They have traded some of that traditional freewheeling flair for absolute control. And if we are talking about control, we have to look at the massive philosophical contrast between Brazil and the team positioned as the absolute hardest to beat.
Oh, France. The real sleeper pick. If you can even call a powerhouse like them a sleeper, I mean.
Right. They are essentially the Terminator of international football. While Brazil is running on this emotionally charged, compressed energy, France is defined by just ruthless efficiency.
Yeah, Didier Deschamps does not mess around.
He doesn't. Their manager is a pure pragmatist. He does not care about entertaining the crowd at all. He builds teams specifically to be incredibly difficult to break down.
He definitely doesn't need his team to play beautiful, dazzling football. Because, dazzling football often leaves you defensively exposed when you lose possession. So how does this actually look on the pitch for France?
Well, it comes down to how Joshua utilizes a mid-block. Instead of pressing wildly high up the pitch to win the ball back, which, frankly, exhausts your players over a month-long tournament, he sets his team up to intentionally draw the opponent out.
So they just absorb the pressure.
Exactly. They let the other team have the ball in harmless areas. Then, the second the opponent makes a mistake and leaves space behind their defense, France transitions instantly. They use Kylian Mbappe's terrifying pace to counterattack into that empty space.
It's entirely clinical.
Totally clinical. Add to that the fact that Mbappe is playing in a highly favorable time zone with a massive cultural footprint, like an almost home continent scenario, and France becomes a machine built to survive the marathon.
Wow. So you have Brazil's coiled spring of kinetic energy clashing against France's cold, calculated mid-block. That's an incredible dynamic at the top, especially with teams like Spain and England also predicted to make the Final Four with their own possession-heavy styles.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating clash of styles.
But France is building this machine entirely for the future. What happens when you're a team that's trapped in the past?
Well, that is the exact trap that threatens to swallow the defending champions, Argentina. The transition from ultimate glory to a massive structural crisis can happen overnight in the sport.
And this is where the breakdown gets truly brutal, because Argentina achieved the absolute pinnacle in Qatar, but heading into 2026, they are staring down a severe post-Messi transition.
Yeah, everyone knows Lionel Messi will be 38 years old during this tournament.
38. And the core crisis isn't just his age. It's the reality that for over a decade, Argentina's entire tactical identity has been built around one specific objective, right? Covering for his complete lack of defensive pressing so he could save his energy to create magic.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that creates a massive vulnerability in the modern game. Building a system to cover for a player's defensive limitations works when that player is delivering supernatural offensive output.
Right, when he's scoring every game.
Exactly. But at 38, the biological reality is that he cannot carry that same load against elite opposition. Suddenly, Argentina's midfield is left totally exposed.
Long man, yeah.
They will be facing opponents with fresh 22-year-old legs who press relentlessly for 90 minutes. This ties directly into why defending champions historically struggle so immensely.
It's a pattern that repeats like clockwork, honestly. Look at Germany crashing out in the group stage in 2018, or Spain getting humiliated in 2014. Why is it so predictable?
It is a structural paralysis. A defending champion becomes trapped by loyalty. The manager feels a profound, almost familial debt to the veterans who won the trophy 4 years prior.
Which is human nature, right? You want to reward the guys who got you there.
Of course. You want to honor them, and the entire country expects them to be on the pitch. But the sport evolves rapidly. As a manager, you become stuck in this agonizing middle ground between trusting the aging core that brought you glory and integrating the untested youth that you desperately need for the next tactical cycle.
Right. So you end up with an aging core, unproven young players, suddenly thrust into high-pressure roles to fill the gaps, a brutal bracket, and the sky-high expectations of an entire nation convinced that a back-to-back title is simply their destiny.
It's a tough spot to be in.
Mathematically, it creates a recipe for a quarterfinal exit at best. But let me push back on this pessimism for a moment. Are we completely discounting the sheer psychological muscle memory of winning?
How do you mean?
Well, these guys know exactly how to navigate the chaotic pressure cooker of a World Cup knockout stage. Doesn't knowing how to win and having that ultimate confidence count for something when the tactical plan goes out the window?
It absolutely counts, but there is a hard biological limit to willpower. Muscle memory and psychological resilience are vital. They're exactly what gets an aging team through a scrappy group stage match or helps them survive a penalty shootout in the round of 16.
Right, but what about later in the tournament?
Well, a World Cup is not a sprint. By the time you hit the quarterfinals or semifinals, facing a ruthless machine like France or a highly cohesive unit like Brazil, willpower cannot outrun lactic acid.
The physical toll just catches up.
Precisely. The physical toll of the marathon eventually, inevitably, overwhelms the psychological edge.
The spirit is willing, but the legs are heavy. Now, emotion, loyalty, and historical baggage create these massive blind spots for fans and managers alike. But what happens when we strip away all the romance?
You mean looking at the raw data?
Yeah. When we ignore the narratives about destiny and look exclusively at the cold, hard math, the AI probability modeling offers a really fascinating counter-narrative to human intuition.
Because AI models do not get swept up in the romantic narrative of a team's history or a legendary player's final ride.
Exactly.
They evaluate millions of simulations based purely on data points. We're talking historical matchups, projected travel distances, climate changes between host cities, and advanced performance metrics.
Right, so let's look at the implied win probabilities churning out of these models. You have Brazil sitting at the top with about a 14% chance to win it all. France is right behind them at roughly 13%.
Very close.
Then England sits at about 11%. Interestingly, Argentina is still highly respected by the models at 10%, despite all the structural and transition concerns we just unpacked. And Spain rounds out that top tier at 9%.
It's a tight race at the top.
It is. But I have to ask, how exactly is the AI arriving at a 10% chance for an aging Argentina squad that we just concluded is tactically trapped in the past?
Because the AI isn't just looking at the age of the roster or basic win-loss records. It weighs heavily on expected goals, or XG. This metric measures the mathematical quality of the scoring chances a team creates versus the quality of the chances they concede.
Okay, so it looks deeper than just the surface stat.
Right. So even though Argentina is older and vulnerable to a high press, the AI sees that mathematically they still possess the ball brilliantly and heavily suppress opponent chances. They dictate the tempo of a match, which limits chaos.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, the model respects that established ability to control the game state.
That makes perfect sense. They starve the opponent of the ball so the opponent can't shoot. But I want to zero in on England at 11%.
I thought you might bring them up.
I mean, if you're listening to this and looking at that number right now, you are probably rolling your eyes. Because betting on England in a major tournament feels exactly like having that one friend who constantly promises to plan the ultimate epic group vacation.
Oh, that's a perfectly painful analogy.
Right. Every single year, they send you the glossy brochures, the itinerary looks incredible, the talent is undeniable, you get completely bought in. And then, without fail, they flake at the absolute last minute, and you end up sitting at home.
That is painfully accurate for their fan base. The talent is always undeniably there. The brochure is full of elite Premier League superstars who dominate club football.
They always look so good on paper.
They do. And this raises an important question about how AI models balance these factors. The AI sees that raw, undeniable talent and their high expected goals output, so it objectively spits out an 11% probability.
But the AI doesn't know about the historical baggage.
Exactly. Human history and the massive psychological pressure of wearing that specific shirt suggest a high probability of flaking when the execution requires ultimate composure in a semifinal.
Yeah, definitely. Beyond those heavy favorites, there is a fascinating tier of dark horses where the smart money is looking for value. Look at Portugal, for example.
A very interesting team right now.
We are finally entering their post-Ronaldo era. For over a decade, every single tactical movement, every cross, every pass had to funnel through one player. It made them predictable.
Highly predictable.
But without that singular focal point dictating the entire offense, they actually have massive tactical upside. They can play a much more fluid, decentralized attacking style that is incredibly difficult to plan against.
And that unpredictability makes them incredibly dangerous in a knockout format. Germany presents another compelling case, actually.
Right. They've been rebuilding.
They have. They don't have that home continent bump they enjoyed during the Euros, but the rebuild they've undergone under Julian Nagelsmann makes them formidable. They've integrated technical youth seamlessly into their framework.
Yeah, you can't ever count Germany out.
You also have the USA, who boast a young, highly athletic core, a potentially favorable draw, and the undeniable advantage of a massive home crowd backing them.
Which leads directly into the ultimate wildcard, the longshot special, Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
Playing on home soil, they're going to be backed by literally millions of the most passionate fans on Earth. If they can finally break their notorious, agonizing curse of constantly losing in the round of 16, they have the potential to completely shock a giant of the sport.
And this is where you see the sheer limits of AI modeling. I mean, how does an algorithm accurately quantify the psychological impact of 80,000 screaming Mexican fans urging their team forward?
You just can't measure that.
You really can't. You can measure expected goals, you can calculate average player sprint speed, but you cannot measure the sheer adrenaline spike a team gets from a crowd of that magnitude.
It's pure emotion.
Yeah, it introduces a massive intangible variable that can break a purely mathematical model. Adrenaline makes players run faster and tackle harder than their baseline data suggests is even possible.
Which perfectly brings us to the stages where all this adrenaline expectation and tactical warfare will actually unfold.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't have these monumental clashes of human emotion without the right backdrop.
The venues are so crucial.
Let's look at the actual physical venues that are going to define the legacy of this tournament. There are 16 venues spread across the 3 host countries, dealing with vastly different climates and environments. But here's where it gets really interesting. 2 of them stand head and shoulders above the rest in terms of cultural significance.
They are the literal theaters of dreams for this event. One represents the modern, ultra-commercial spectacle of the sport, and the other represents its deep, almost mystical historical roots.
Let's start with the modern spectacle, MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. This is the venue locked in for the final on July 19th.
It's a massive facility.
The scale of it is just staggering. It has an 82,000-seat capacity sitting right there with the New York City skyline looming in the background.
The visual of that is going to be incredible.
Right. The players stepping onto that pitch for the final will be the center of one of the most watched broadcasts in human history. MetLife is the ultimate representation of the modern, billionaire-scale era of the game. It's colossal, it's corporate, it is the peak global stage.
It is a technological monument. The infrastructure is designed to maximize the modern viewing experience both in the stadium and for the billions watching on television. It is flawless and intimidating.
But then we have the other end of the spectrum.
Yes. You pivot to the true soul of the World Cup. Estadio Azteca in Mexico City. The contrast between the two is profound.
Reading about Azteca in the notes, it is hard not to feel the gravity of it. This is the only stadium on Earth that will have hosted matches in 3 entirely different World Cups, 1970, 1986, and now 2026.
The historical weight baked into the concrete of that stadium is just unmatched.
It's legendary.
In 1970, that very pitch was where Pelé cemented his legacy, playing in a Brazilian team many consider the greatest ever assembled. In 1986, Diego Maradona orchestrated a performance that was practically supernatural, elevating Argentina to glory while dealing with the intense altitude.
Zinedine Zidane has walked down that tunnel.
Exactly. Every single step a modern player takes on that grass, they are carrying the ghosts of the absolute titans who define the sport.
It feels almost spiritual. Like MetLife is a modern marvel engineered to safely hold 80,000 people and generate massive revenue. But Azteca is a temple. It's a proving ground where the air is literally thinner.
Beautifully put. For a player today, stepping out into the roaring atmosphere of Azteca is about measuring yourself against those ghosts. You are answering to the legends of the past.
And MetLife.
Stepping into MetLife for the final. That is about writing the future. You aren't competing with ghosts there. You are cementing your own legacy in the modern era of the game.
It is the absolute perfect duality for a tournament of this unprecedented scale. Man, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. By taking these analytical notes and breaking them down, you now have the ultimate roadmap to what is going to happen on the pitch.
We really went deep. We've looked at the underlying mechanisms driving the favorites, the structural flaws threatening the defending champions, and the fascinating limits of purely mathematical predictions.
Yeah, you know exactly how Brazil's coiled spring motivation translates into a tight, explosive tactical system built to survive a continent-spanning marathon.
And you understand Argentina's transition.
Right. Why Argentina's aging core and their reliance on covering for Messi creates a structural paralysis against younger, relentless pressing teams.
We've unpacked how France uses a calculated mid-block to achieve ruthless efficiency, too.
Yeah, and why the AI still respects Argentina's ability to mathematically suppress chances and the contrasting, spine-tingling magic of MetLife and Azteca.
So when the tournament kicks off, you won't just be watching 22 players running around. You will understand the hidden currents and tactical decisions driving every single match.
But before we wrap this up, there is one final incredible detail buried deep in the analysis that completely reframes everything we just discussed.
Oh, this is the best part.
The data clearly states that all of these AI models, all these carefully calculated betting odds, will shift dramatically the moment the group draw is confirmed.
The draw alters the entire mathematical landscape in an instant.
Right. And it really makes you stop and think. We have just spent all this time diving deep into tactical mid-blocks, expected goals, the psychological weight of home field advantage, and the heavy burden of defending a title.
All of that logic.
Yeah, but what if the ultimate decider of this multi-billion-dollar continent-spanning tournament isn't skill? What if it isn't ruthless efficiency or destiny or the ghosts of Azteca?
What is it then?
What if, at the end of the day, Football destiny simply comes down to the pure, chaotic randomness of how little plastic ping pong balls fall out of a glass bowl during the group draw.
It's entirely possible.
You could plan meticulously for 4 years only to get a spectacularly unlucky bracket. So as the noise gets louder and the continent prepares for the ultimate spectacle, let that percolate.